All right, guys, welcome back. This is another episode of Back to Back with Dr. Mark Moran, and I have a special guest here, Mr. Will Allan, or should I call you Dr. Will Allan? Technically, you're a doctor of jurisprudence.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true, but you can just call me Will.
Just Will?
Yeah, just Will.
Just call me Mark. And today we are going to be talking about LOPs, LOPs.
LOPs, yes.
A lot of my patients say, what's a LOP? Okay, so we're going to talk about LOPs, which are letter of protections. Will's an expert in this and has been practicing law for a long time. So let's get started. First things first. Ready? What's the coolest thing you've ever done?
Oh man, there's
too many.
There's too many.
Too many.
I will say things that I like to do. I can't just point to one and go, "That's the coolest thing I've ever done." I love hanging out with my family. I know that sounds dull, but I have 3 boys.
Yeah.
And if I'm doing something with my 3 boys, whether it's fishing, whether it's hunting, whether we're talking about God with other people, or I'm doing that on my own, those are the things I really, really like to do. So family is critical. And of course, my wife, she's the only female, so there's a tremendous amount of testosterone.
Of course there is.
And she's kind of fallen in line with what we do. So
I agree.
Do things.
Very good.
It's good.
Good. So you're a good dad. That's good. And your boys go to UT, right?
Yeah. No, we bleed maroon.
I understand. Like we were talking about, and my kids bleed maroon too.
As well.
There you go. So tell us a little bit about yourself so we can get started. We need a fundamental level of understanding, and then I'm going to dive into harder questions.
Okay. I've been practicing law for 25 long years, and went to Texas A&M, where I graduated with a civil engineering degree. And about my junior year, I decided I really didn't want to design bridges, and I was not going to be good at it.
I heard it's really hard to get a 4.0 there.
And yes, it is.
It's very hard. So anyone that gets a 4.0 in engineering A&M, props to them.
Props, yes.
Props to them.
William, my son, way to go.
Strong work.
So I said, why not law school? We'll go there. And so I went to law school, not knowing truly what I was going to do. Like, okay, I could be a lawyer or a CEO, because I've heard if you have an engineering degree and a law degree, you can be a CEO of Fortune 500 companies. I just didn't quite conceptualize there's 500 of those companies, so it's kind of competitive.
They do call it Fortune 500.
Yeah, for a reason.
I don't know why they got it.
So, I didn't quite fit that. But what happened when I was in law school, I competed in a mock trial competition, and it was like God came down and said, this is what you should do. And I really, really liked it.
Argumentative. Speculative.
You know the objections.
I wanted to say that ever since I booked this. I'm going to object the whole time.
If I ever say anything, crass or off color, you can just object to it.
Speculative. Argumentative. Leading the witness.
Asked and answered. Those are legit objections.
Oh, I know. I watch TV.
So, and really, I came out of law school. I clerked for some law firms that were trial lawyers. It's really what I wanted to do. And I started on the dark side, the insurance company side.
You worked on the insurance company side?
The dark side.
Wow.
So I worked for insurance defense firms. And then I went out on my own and started representing people. Okay.
So probably makes you really good at what you do now, because you have an inside insight about what's going on from the insurance side. And so what made you switch then?
It got old representing insurance companies where I would send them a bill, because you bill by the hour, which is different when you represent people who can't afford to pay by the hour always, like an insurance company can. Yeah. And they would say, no, that telephone call, that needs to be only 0.1. You shouldn't have spent 18 minutes on that. And so they would really cut my bills. And really, we weren't representing people. We were really truly representing the insurance company, because those were.
Well, we know insurance companies. Yeah, they control
so much. People don't realize how much insurance companies control in this country.
Yeah, it's a lot. Right.
It's tremendous.
So we're glad you made it to this side.
Thank you.
Okay. And you've been working on this side for 13 years?
About 13 years.
And you're an expert in your area?
Yes.
So what is a LOP?
A LOP. Letter of protection. A letter of protection is a letter where we are protecting as lawyers or the doctor, the client, so that they can get medical care if they don't have insurance or they don't want to use their insurance, where the patient, our client, is treated under a letter of protection such that they don't have to pay up front.
Okay. And when do you get to use these LOPs? So what's the most common types?
Let me give you an example. With somebody who has health insurance, they will be involved in some kind of accident, whether it's a car accident, whether it's a slip and fall, whether it's something really, really significant, explosion in the oil field. And we'll take a smaller example, car wreck. They call, if they have, a lot of people don't have primary care physicians, but they'll call their primary care physician to set up an appointment. And the primary care physician says, or their staff, oh, you're involved in an accident? We don't treat accident victims.
I hear about this a lot.
Quick story. When I was a defense lawyer, I deposed a lot of injured people. And I would always, ask them, why didn't you go? Because we'd get their medical records. Why didn't you go to your primary care physician? And they'd say, well, because they wouldn't take me.
They don't take LOPs.
I was involved in a wreck, and they wouldn't. And I was like, sure, they wouldn't take you. But since I have been representing people for 13 years, I was shocked.
Yeah.
So
a lot of doctors don't take LOPs.
Well, you tell. Why is it? I mean, I can think they don't want to have to give deposition testimony. They don't want to have to constantly give their medical records to attorneys when they're subpoenaed.
Yeah.
But they don't want to.
And it's a risk. So we're taking the case on contingency. So if the case is lost, we lose all of our fees. And it takes a long time to get paid. How long does it usually take to close an LOP case?
It varies.
Yeah.
On
Years.
So many things. It can.
Years.
Yes,
Yeah.
it absolutely can.
Yeah. A lot of doctors don't have the bandwidth to deal with that and just keep on carrying forward charges till the end of the case, and when they might not even win. So a lot of doctors just choose not to do LOP cases.
Well, and I will say it's really important that doctors like you will take LOPs, because there are people who don't have health insurance,
right,
and they can't afford necessarily to pay your fees.
Right.
And an LOP, when they're involved in an accident of some sort, a wreck, slip and fall, wherever, somebody else's negligence, where there's an insurance policy,
right,
doctors like you, in particular, you can help them.
Yeah.
And we'll take an LOP.
Right. So certainly there's pros and cons to working with LOPs versus an insurance company.
Okay.
Clear?
Yes. And you agree?
I agree
with that.
I agree. There's pros and cons.
For you.
Sure.
On the medical side.
So we listed that it's free medical care until the end of the case. Nothing is paid during the case, correct?
That's right.
Okay. If I say something wrong, tell me.
I will.
I'm just a doctor. I play one on TV. And then they get usually preferred treatment, getting scheduling and appointments, because they're part of the LOP process instead of having to wait longer and longer to see doctors, my understanding. We usually try to get our patients in quicker. They don't have to worry about other issues about dealing with pharmacies or imaging places or therapy places, because once again, under the LOP, these places are going to already take those services.
Correct.
Right? Okay. Some of the cons are they got to wait a while till the case is closed sometimes. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. And there's a lot of detail involved. There's a lot of details that will help my patients out under LOPs. I'm sure you have the same thing when you have clients that have LOPs, and you're like, I wish you guys would just understand that it's very important that you understand this is a legal case and there's things that you can do to help your case out. True?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the best thing they can do to help out their case if they have an LOP case?
In our typical LOP, letter of protection, that really, thank God, a good doctor like you will take,
Thank you,
is that sometimes we don't win.
Right.
Most of the time, I will say, I think the statistics are 98% of all
it's very
cases
high. It's very high amount.
settle.
Yeah.
And you can get paid. The other doctors who may have treated one of my clients can get paid. We get paid our attorney's fees. Mm-hmm. And generally, the client, of course, gets paid for their pain and suffering that they have experienced, mental anguish.
Sure.
There could be disfigurement.
Sure.
The physical impairment that they're compensated for. But if it doesn't work out, they could still
Right.
potentially have to pay the doctors.
Right.
So it's really, really important that we make sure and we vet our cases so that we can help our
Right.
client. Because not every case that we come across can we establish liability.
Right.
Because we're dealing with liability insurance policies, which is very different from, say, health insurance.
Is that the main important thing to do, is establish liability?
Both. They go hand in glove. So if we can't establish liability, generally we would turn the case away.
Okay.
And I could give you a bunch of examples about when there wouldn't be a liability. If you're the one that runs into the rear of somebody, you're the tortfeasor. Well, that's not going to work.
So when you say liability, you mean who's at fault?
Who's at fault?
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
So if someone is not at fault, then it's not their liability. You probably would accept that case.
Yes.
If someone is at fault, then it's probably harder to accept those cases.
Right.
Right.
Usually what happens is, as far as their medical care, there's insurance policies, automobile policies that have PIP, personal injury protection, where it's a no-fault type of insurance. Hopefully they have some health insurance.
Sure.
But we're dealing with automobile insurance policies. And there's a lot of different coverages. And I know
There's lots of different rules.
there's a lot of
It's like
different
insurance policies. There's many different insurance policies. There's not one set of rules that govern everyone. Even in the same, like Blue Cross Blue Shield or Humana, there's different insurance little innuendos, like details that you got to know.
Right.
So,
And different coverages.
Yeah. And can anyone get an LOP, or is there criteria you have to get to meet to get an LOP?
So an LOP is a letter that we prepare.
Okay.
So as long as we establish the attorney-client relationship, because we believe they have a case, we can fight for them for a recovery. Then if they don't have health insurance, or if they do but they don't want to use their health insurance, because if somebody hurt you, running into you with a car, whatever the case may be, some people say, I've got a $5,000 deductible.
And the rates will go up.
All of those things. So they would rather treat under an LOP. We give them that option. We give people that option. Sometimes people don't have any other option but an LOP. So just the criteria is that we can establish that there's an at-fault party with insurance.
Right.
That's really important. Liability insurance. Yeah.
Okay. And is there a certain time frame that would be good for, say someone gets an accident, they go home, they're trying to see if they need to do any therapies or emergency services or go to the ER or a doctor. Is there any time frame that they really need to start considering if they want to go see or get involved with a lawyer to see if they're an LP candidate or not? Can they wait years?
It's a great question. It's a really, really good question. It is much better for their case if they seek medical care ASAP.
Right.
And I'll tell you why. If they don't, insurance company adjusters, insurance company defense lawyers, which I was, start questioning whether they're really hurt.
Sure. I've seen it.
The veracity
I've seen it.
of them.
Like if you're in so much pain, why did you wait months to come see a doctor?
It's a money grab. That's why you're here. And people try to gut it out. They try to do some home exercise, especially now, Instagram, you can find sciatica. And you start doing exercises and maybe they try that. But if you have liability insurance, the other party, or you have underinsured motorist coverage, we can talk about, if you wanted to, and educate some people about the different types of coverages, as long as there's coverage.
Right.
A lot of different coverages under an insurance policy. They need to go.
Right.
And they need to go for themselves, of course, to get better, but also so that they can be paid, their doctor's expenses can be paid without a claims adjuster going, nah, they're not being truthful.
Yeah, and I've seen that personally with patients that get in an accident, they report these pains, and then a week or 2 or 3 later, they get in another accident, which really complicates it because now which pain is caused by which accident, or they go to lift up some presents that they're wrapping for their kids and they hurt their back, and now is the pain coming from the accident or from lifting up their gifts, or they're doing yard work or whatever else. So I agree with you. I think that the sooner the better to get some type of objective evaluation or data that can't be refuted. So either get a physician opinion or go get some x-rays or go get an urgent care opinion. That way you say, this is objective data. This is what happened after my injury, and then we can see how things go.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. And for yourself, so many people are really busy. They don't have time. I don't want to go to a doctor right now. Well, see if this can better on its own. And that's not the route to go when you're dealing with this situation. For yourself, go. Get treatment.
Make sure you're okay. Because it is a fact that you could have underlying injuries that are festering, that you could be asymptomatic for a while and they just kind of bleed, or some kind of problems. And then later it gets really bad really fast.
Absolutely.
I would agree with you that you need to take care of yourself, make sure you're okay, and then go get some type of objective data in case you decide to use an LOP or not. So far, I agree with your answers. You can't object with me.
Do you want? I can start objecting.
You can want if you want. I would love to be able to overrule an objection from a lawyer. Okay. And then, what's the usual amount of time? I know it varies that an LOP case takes before the time to accident to the time to settlement.
I have helped people with cases where they finish their medical treatment and it's 2 weeks later that we settle. I had cases where I had to file a lawsuit, and especially now with COVID, the courts have always been backed up, but even, we're almost 5 years post-COVID, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the courts are still backed up with cases. So it really, really varies. And it oftentimes depends on liability.
Yeah. I can see that.
Questionable liability, and the insurance company and their lawyers are fighting really hard, and they don't want to pay what we believe is fair. And next thing you know, you're at the courthouse and you're picking a jury and you've got to try it. And that takes years to get there.
So it's better to kind of, I'm sorry, go ahead and finish.
Well, so on a quick, I would say a quick would be six weeks after medical treatment is squared away. And a long time, I mean, I've tried a case where, the accident was, 2012 and it was 2017.
Oh, really?
To try the case.
Yeah.
And those can be more significant type injury cases as well, because there's a lot more dollars that are needed for the client, and insurance companies don't want to pay those kind of dollars.
I'm sure that varies depending if it's a commercial case or a private case.
Absolutely.
Right. Commercial case being like a business entity versus another person walking off the street that hits you.
That's right. So a business would be like, I don't want to necessarily use business name, but a
Mark's
supermarket.
Cookie Mark's Cookie Company.
Mark's Cookie Company.
He loves
LLC.
oatmeal raisin and chocolate chip with nuts. I'm just saying.
Yes, or 18-wheeler. They have, they've got to have big policies.
Sure.
They're really big, 80,000-pound missiles cruising down the road, and when they're hit somebody, usually because they're hurting them bad. So there's big policy limits there.
Right.
And so, yes, that typically takes a little longer to resolve than Joe Blow rear-ending somebody, and they've got low back pain or neck pain, and they seek treatment. Maybe they get shots, which I'd like to visit with you about, because I'm sure you get a lot of that. My client certainly say, does it hurt? What is that? And those typically resolve sooner rather than later.
Okay. So I know that when I see patients, LOP patients, I always try to educate them about what to do. I'm a big person about education. Knowledge is power. And I say, try not to let there be a lapse in service or evaluations. It makes it really hard if someone goes to a therapist for 1 or 2 times, and then 6 months later, they go back to the therapist and say, oh, can I continue my treatment? Because now there's 6 months of who knows what happened. And it's the same thing with doctors. If you go see a doctor and they evaluate you and say, you got to do this plan, and then they don't come back for 2 or 3 months, it really makes it hard to justify, why aren't you coming to see us if you're claiming you have all this pain? So I encourage my patients to be actively involved with their case. And if they miss an appointment or miss an MRI or miss therapy, or they forget their medicines, you need to go get that stuff. It's very important, because it's a legal case that you have to say you're building a picture to show your lawyer and the other lawyer what's going on, and you want to make sure that you're maximizing the probability of you winning this case, and there should be no lapses of therapies.
So when you tell a patient you need this type of medical treatment and they only do half of it.
Right.
That's not good medically. Maybe you can speak into a little bit of that. And it's certainly not good for the case, because what happens? The insurance adjuster or the defense lawyer says, yeah, I mean, look, you weren't really hurt, or well, no wonder you're hurt. You didn't follow doctor's orders.
That's what they usually say is you're not getting better because you're not following your doctor's orders. Now, of course, if they're better and they don't need anything, perfect. If they're healed and their pain is gone, then you don't need to do anything else. But still, you should go in and get a final evaluation to show, again, objective data that they're all better, there's no more problems, it'll help your case. But I agree with you that patients need to be actively involved with their case and continue to follow up with their doctors or therapists or take their medicines or see their lawyers, because you don't want a lapse of time because it weakens the case. Agree?
100% weakens their recovery time.
Certainly.
So what is it that you say? You need to be educated. You use the art of war in some of your episodes.
If you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail.
Yeah, I mean, those kind of things hold true. Educate yourself about medicines, which you tell your patients in your podcast, which includes educating yourself about your case. Talk to your lawyer, whoever it may be, about your case so that you know and you're educated and can make decisions and improve your case.
Yeah. Knowledge is power. Never hesitate to ask a question. We're happy to help out. A lot of times we have a lot of things to do, but ask us a question. We're happy to help out. I'm sure you are the same way.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's take a time out.
Okay.
And now you're going to give me 2 truths and a lie after a word from our sponsors.
Okay. Sponsor.
So go ahead.
I thought there was going to be somebody to come in.
This is it. I use the same joke every time. I probably need to come up with a new joke. But anyway, so we want to know about you. Your clients want to know about you. They don't get a chance to talk to you very often. It's usually probably very busy or very structured or trying to deal with their case. So 2 truths and a lie. I'm going to see if I can guess your lie based on reading you. See how good I'd be at a lawyer.
No, I like that.
All right.
I like that. You tell me the lie.
Okay.
I mean, about me, I became a lawyer.
That's a lie.
and I really truly like to help people.
Uh-huh.
It's not just about earning a paycheck. Obviously, I have family and kids to feed and a couple to put through college, but helping people in a number of different cases.
Okay.
And it is injury case, of course, that can run the gamut to somebody who is just significantly burned, a burn victim, somebody who loses a loved one in some kind of accident. I can be there to not just help them financially, which usually they really need, healthcare, future healthcare, that kind of thing. But they're hurting, not just physically. And in all cases, it's mentally, and to be able to walk with them through that and minister. I'm a believer, and to minister to them and with them for their spirit, their heart is stuff I genuinely love to do.
They got to be able to trust you.
Yes.
I'm saying that's a truth.
That is a truth.
Okay. So you got one more truth and one more lie. I'm still trying to guess what the lie is.
I'm not good at lying, so you tell me. What's a lie about me that you've kind of read? Okay,
I'm going to say a truth is...
How about this? This is a lie.
You're not supposed to tell me.
I got it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to say you used to play baseball or you used to play basketball and dunk balls. Good poker face. Good poker face.
That's it. No, that's good. That's good. I think my vertical's about like this.
Anyway, and it is what it is. It is what it is. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to say, what's your fundamental lesson that you want your clients to know through this podcast so that moving forward, as everyone comes in and you start getting tons of business because everyone knows that you're a great lawyer and they can trust you and you're going to be with them the whole time. What do you say? Help yourself out by helping me with this information. What is it?
What do I tell my clients? And one of the things that I tell them to help them in their case and their family is get medical treatment. Get the medical treatment that you need so that you can get better, or as best you can, because you can't necessarily heal certain type of injuries, but get the medical care that you need so that later on in the future, you're not suffering more than you are now.
And the thing I'll say about that is, what's the first thing stewardess or airline people say when you get on a flight? They say, first, put the oxygen on you and take care of yourself so you can take care of others. is very similar with these LOP patients. They feel like they can't come in or they don't want to come in because they have other things to do, but it's exactly the opposite. They need to come in and get treated so they can take care of themselves, and consequently they can take care of others.
That's right.
And then say people come in and they get an LOP and they're going through all kinds of stuff, but they don't have any options to go to the surgeon for evaluation or go get injections or they don't want to take any medicines. A lot of times people don't want to take medicines. So what are the options if they don't really want to go to a doctor's office? What's the best thing for them to do?
That's a great question. I'm not a medical doctor, and I say this is where you should go, and I encourage them to seek medical treatment, seek medical advice, seek medical care, and if they don't do that, then there's not a whole lot that we really can do.
Yeah.
So that would be something for you. Well, I'm kind of curious when they ask you, why don't you, what do you typically tell patients? They say, I don't want to take that medicine, or I'm really scared of needles. I don't want to, I don't want an injection.
Sure. I'm a big advocate for patients are in control. Like, I know they come to me for help, but they're in control. They decide what they want or what they don't want, and it's very much a conversation to find out something that we can meet on and agree on. If they don't want to do injections, they don't have to do injections. If they don't want to try medicines, they don't have to try medicines. If they don't want to see a surgeon, then they don't see a surgeon. They're very much driving the boat. I'm basically kind of offering them or educating them to options, and then we'll talk about it and see. I'll answer questions. They say, I don't want to do that. Okay, then let's move on to other options. One option that I think is a good option for patients that really don't want to do medicines or are afraid of needles or don't want to have surgery is the 1 month MD program that we have, where patients can go online 24/7 and educate themselves about what's going on. So it's available 24/7, and it's very good educational material so they can become an active participant in their health, and they don't even have to leave their house. So while they're recovering from this injury, if they don't want to seek medical attention in the ways that we usually do, they can still get better just from understanding the pathology. The course talks about the causes and the treatments and the prevention of low back pain.
Okay, objection.
Overruled.
I've got to object. What is I know what pathology means, but what does pathology mean?
Well, pathology means something that's not right. Like if you have a pathology in a body, that means something isn't right. So if they're talking about pathologies after an accident, something is wrong causing the pain.
Herniated disc.
That's a pathology.
Disc bulge.
Yeah, all those are pathologies.
Obviously, broken bone.
Yep.
So, and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
I didn't have a good objection. Just objection. You were saying then they have pathology like a herniated disc, and they don't want to do something that you would recommend.
Right.
And you would say, and I will say your program really truly is good. I haven't seen all of it, but what I have seen is very, very informative.
Thank you.
They can watch.
Yeah. So what they can do is they can either go directly online to 1monthmd.com, or they can talk to the lawyer and say, hey, can you send a LOP to me? And then I'll just give them access to the course, and they can get it, and it just all goes under the LOP.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
And so what are a couple of things on the podcast or the
course?
The course, thank you. That would really help a low back. Somebody who has pathology L5, S1.
Look at you with your medical terminology.
I know. Well, and you know what? I had an anatomical little
model.
I did, and I left it in my car, just because I'm kind of curious,
Okay.
Point it out, look at it. But
okay.
if it is pathology that's impinging, touching the nerve root, causing some pain, generally that's treated how, and then segue to help me better understand what you would recommend they do, or something that's in your course that you could say this is something good to do.
Very good question. Sustained objection. I'm going to answer that one. In general, I educate my patients. There's 4 things to do for any type of pain. It's conservative things like therapy, acupuncture, chiropractor, different types of conservative things. Then it's medicines, whether it be prescription medicines or non-prescription medicines. And then it's interventions like injections, and then it's surgery. So if you take all these options that make it really hard to understand or complex and just break it down to those 4 categories, then it's easier to understand what you're willing to do or what you don't want to do. If a patient comes in, they say, I don't want to do surgery or injections, then I know the options are going to be conservative care and or medications. They don't want the other 2 groups. If they say, well, I really want to do therapy and I'd be happy with injections, but I don't want to do medicines, then those are the options. We'll try therapy first. And there's an algorithm. You usually go from conservative to medicines to interventions to surgery. You want to do things and not have any regrets. Like you don't want to go to surgery right off and then have a problem, which almost never happens, but it's possible. And then you say, I wish I would have tried other things first. So I tell my patients, there's algorithms. You follow conservative things like physical therapy or chiropractor, over-the-counter medicines, rest, ice, heat. Then you try medicines, prescription medicines or non-prescription medicines. Then if you want, you can try injection. There are many different types of injections to treat pain. And then the last option, as far as LOP cases, would be go see a surgeon just to see if you need surgery. A lot of times clients think that if they're going to a surgeon, they have to have surgery. That's not true. Remember, the client is the boss. The client is in control. And they should never do anything that they don't want to do just because they're talking to you or me or anyone else. If they don't want to do it, they say, I don't want to do that, and that's fine. But if they go to a surgeon and the surgeon says, you're not a surgical candidate, then we know that that's no longer an option, and now we have 3 options to reevaluate. If they say you are a surgical candidate, it's still up to the patient to determine if they want surgery or not. The patient or the client is the boss. They make the decisions, and they should never do anything they don't want to do. It's very simple. The course goes through these options in more detail about what they can do at home as far as causes of low back pain, the treatments that are available, which are those 4 things, and then actually preventing pain from coming back and minimizing it in the future.
Which is what? What would be an example of preventing pain or minimizing it in the future?
Very good, important thing I believe in is core strength. And in the course, I say a strong core gets you more very thing. So a strong core is going to make sure you offload stress from your spine. It's going to minimize your chance of bulging discs. It's going to make you more stable in dealing with these pains. So Pilates is an option. Yoga is really good. Weight loss is good. Definitely don't smoke. Maintain hydration. All these things will help prevent pain from coming on.
Do you give them exercises? I haven't gotten that far in your course. Or do you recommend that they go to a chiropractor or a physical therapist for those type of exercises?
I give all the options. So I give suggestions for exercises at home, or we have it on our social media, or I say if you want to try a chiropractor, I'm happy to send you to a chiropractor. I'm just sort of a facilitator. The client and the patient is the boss. I work for them at that point, and I'm just giving them their options, and they ask me questions, and then we will agree with what's best for them, but they have the ultimate decision. They're the boss.
Right. I mean, that's the same thing in the law. They're the boss. Simple. We give them options, and they choose what they want to do.
Pretty simple.
They're the boss. They make the decisions.
Okay. As we close, and tell us where your location is. Where are your offices?
So right off of Northwest Military.
Okay.
We're got a website.
What's the website?
WillAllanLaw.com.
Will Allan Law. It's ALLAN.
ALLAN. And we've got a great team. I really love my team. We've got great lawyers, great legal staff. We help a lot of people, and intend to do so as long as the good Lord will let me.
Well, I know that my patients that have seen you have had nothing but good things to say about you. So
that's likewise.
I thank you for helping out my patients in your cases. So I appreciate that. Right on Northwest Military?
Yes.
Right? And then what else can you tell us before we say goodbye?
Get medical care if you need it. Yeah. Don't hesitate and don't wait. Contact a lawyer as well. You don't want to wait to contact a lawyer. If an adjuster calls you, an insurance adjuster, and says, oh yeah, well here, we'll pay you this, and it's usually right after the wreck. Sure. Don't do it. Yeah. Seek legal help. Call us. Would love to help you. But there's also other lawyers who you can call.
A lot of good lawyers.
A lot of good lawyers who can help you make the right decision, give you the options that we just talked about, and you can make the decision on how you want to proceed. So be actively involved. Actively involved. Be an active participant, not a passive recipient in your life. Absolutely. That's the main thing of my courses. So be actively involved with your case. Learn about the legal process. Learn about LOPs or LOPs. LOPs. Learn about Will Allan and make sure you think he's a good guy, or just trust me. Be active participant. Be an active participant and not a passive recipient, and you too will find health and improvement. Thank you so much for coming on. Dr. Mark, it's always good seeing you. It's just Mark. It's all good. Okay. All right.